thank you so much for joining me. Today's class is going to be a moderate yoga class. There will be some focus on holding some poses to really get deep into the hip socket and the shoulder socket, so you can get that little bit of self-massage and get that joint open a little bit more. So it's helpful to have a yoga mat, though you don't need a yoga mat, but it is helpful to have one. And you do need as much room as a yoga mat, and make sure you can lift your arms and kick your legs, that you aren't going to kick against heavy furniture or kick over any valuables. I also have a blanket that I'm sitting on, I'll use for underneath my knees, and I've also got some blocks, and I've got something to drink in case I need to wet my whistle. And I hope you have all the things you need to support you. And let's get started, finding that comfortable seat, letting yourself settle in on your breath, becoming aware of your breath. Taking time to let that breath get fuller and deeper as you sit. Taking as much time as you need to unhook from what's going on in your life and what's going on in the world. To be with yourself and your breath. You're breathing any way that is comfortable, whether it be through the nose or the mouth or a combination of the nose and mouth. And right away you are practicing kindness, compassion, and love with yourself, especially if you're finding it hard to just pay attention to your breath, to just pay attention to what is physically going on in your body. To be right here in the present moment that you're in. Some days are easier than others. The more you practice it, the easier it does get. So be kind and gentle with yourself. And let the breath get as full and deep as feels good to you, making sure that you always feel comfortable in your seat, arranging your legs whatever way you need to. And let that breath, if you haven't already, start to do that, to build into that three-part yoga breath. And you fill up the lower third of your lungs, and the middle third, then the upper third, and then you release fully, upper, middle, lower. So you let that breath build in that three-part yoga breath, building from the bottom up, and then releasing top down. Staying with the awareness of your body, really feel yourself. Engage your whole self as you breathe, and as you fill up the lower third of your lungs, press your navel into the space in front of you. The middle third fills up, feel your ribs move up and apart, and the breath goes into the upper third. Your heart moves up in your chest, and then you exhale, heart and chest relax. Ribs move down and together, and then you pull your navel back and up into your body. And then the inhale happens again. You fill up belly, ribs, chest. Exhale fully, chest, ribs, belly. Letting yourself marinate in your breath and that deep, full exchange of oxygen helps to get your breath into, or help to get your blood into a place of support for movement. It's moving quicker through your body. It's flushing into places that don't typically get that blood flow. See if you can even notice the subtlest sensation, or what is the subtlest sensation that you notice. And then Staying with that awareness, again, of your body and what is happening with you physically as you breathe and sit here. Press down into your mat. Feel that connection to the floor, the building, the ground the building's built into, and then the world that connects us all. You can think about engagement or actively press yourself down, squeeze of the glutes, press your knees away, flex your feet. Feel yourself supported and anchored, and that coming from within. And then on your exhale, lift yourself up out of that place of connection and stretch yourself into that space around you that you are meant to take up. So think about engagement or actively press yourself up. Crown of the head, tops of the ears closer to the sky, and then there's a gentle pressure on the tops of your shoulders to lengthen that space at your neck. And still you're breathing full and deep, belly, ribs, chest. Exhaling fully, chest, ribs, belly. Stay with that sensation of you lifting yourself into that space around you. Not only are you supporting yourself from within, but you are lifting yourself from within. Feel your heart lift, your collarbones slide apart, and then your shoulder blades come down and gently tuck together so the back body supports the front body. And right here, both of your girdles are engaged. That pelvic girdle, you're gently pulling the tail down, the hip flexors up, heart up, and you're trying to bring the shoulder blades down. So the back body is always pulling down to the earth, and your front body is always pulling up to the sky. Inhaling and exhaling. Any engagement that you've added, you can, of course, relax at any time. Let your hands come to your heart in prayer position if you want to take a moment to set a personal intention for your practice. Please take a moment to do that. If one can't come to mind, you can always just set the intention to be aware of your body and your breath in the present moment as much as you can, as often as you can. And then we're going to inhale, sweep those arms. Try to keep those shoulders out of your ears. Exhale, pull down into your heart center 2 more times. Inhaling, exhaling, 3rd time. And then you can unwind your legs. Coming out of that centering position, drop your knees side to side in that little windshield wiper. You're in charge of how close your feet are to your body, to each other. Try to stay lifted up off your limbs. You're not putting a lot of weight on your arms as you drop those knees side to side. And then find yourself back into a comfortable seat. Doesn't have to look like you did earlier. And in fact, maybe try to remember which leg was on top or in front, and maybe do the opposite just to have your hips be open in a more full way. Finding that connection with your whole self, starting to tuck that tail, pull that pelvis up, those hip flexors up so you're engaged, you're lifting your heart. Stay with those shoulders out of your ears. You're going to reach up. And once again, hands come together right in front of your heart, and try to really feel that engagement as you gently press your palms of your hands together. So you should feel this all down your arm from shoulder, and your shoulder sockets are engaged. Your blades are gently tucking, and so there should be a nice stretch already before you even do anything on your shoulders and maybe up your neck. And then we're going to lift up and then pull down. So we're going to move side to side. Try to keep your head relatively straight. You don't need to, I don't want you to strain your neck as you move in this prayer stretch. Breathing big and full, deep breaths. You don't have to bring those arms too far down behind your head. And if they can't come down behind, just bring to the top. You're still, as long as you're doing that engagement, you're still getting that stretch. And then the next time they're back in front of your heart, you're going to pause. Pay attention to pressing down evenly with both sitting bones. Lift yourself up and then twist to the right, drop down, twist back through center to twist to the left. And you're going to move side to side. Inhaling and exhaling, finding that length, keeping your shoulders engaged, keeping those arms engaged. Only adding as much engagement as feels good to you. Couple more. And then you're going to find yourself back through center. Excuse me, just let yourself rest for a breath or two, noticing how your body feels, noticing what's going on in your body, and making sure that you are always taking care of it. And then back with those feet on the floor, and your hands can be behind you, and remember, you're not putting all your weight on your hands, and so don't hyperextend your elbows. And with those knees bent, you can let that right ankle come to that left knee, and you can press that right knee away. And if you want to bring yourself closer to press, so I mean bringing your buns closer to that leg closer to the buns. You don't have to be this close. You can be really spread out. You can even be laying down and having that right ankle on that left knee, just to start to get that stretch in those hips. Keep lifting yourself up, not putting that pressure on your hands and arms. And then you're going to release that side. Take a moment, do a little windshield wiper, and then set yourself up to do the other side. And remember, you are in charge. Maybe you start out sort of far apart, and then you scoot closer as the stretch opens and gets that hip, and you are trying to activate through that left heel all the way to that left glute. You even got your right heel active. Inhale and exhale, breathing full and deep. And then you're going to let go of that. Once again, reset. Drop those knees, do whatever feels good. And then back into that comfortable position. Pay attention to your shoulders. Try to keep them out of your ears. Pay attention to your elbows. Try not to hyper extend them. That right arm is going to come up, and you're just going to bend that elbow and reach for right behind your head. Maybe it's right at the top of your shoulders. You don't have to strain. I don't want you to strain. I don't want you to, if you can reach your hands, great. But if you can't, do not strain. I just want you to bring that other hand, that left hand, you're just going to come so you're getting that stretch. My hands are not touching. I'm just getting that stretch. I'm trying to keep my head lifted so it's not hanging down. And like I said, if you can bring your hands together, great. But really this is just about opening up the arm and the shoulder girdle just here seated, and it's still early. So we're going to the opposite side. This side, my non-dominant arm tends to be tighter than my dominant, or maybe my dominant's more tight. I don't know, they're different. But that's one of those things that as you do more yoga, it does seem to even out somewhat. Remember, your hands, I do not want them to be touching unless you just are already got limbs that long, you're already that open. Don't strain, don't go for the extra for right now. We're not even really open yet. Let that go, or we haven't really done too much yet, so you might later though, maybe if I remember, I'll add that back in because I love a good, with the cow face. All right, take your time to come over onto those hands and knees. I am gonna bring a cushion down, so I've got cushion for my knees, and the first place we're going is that child's pose. So walk your legs as wide apart as feels good. Press yourself back into that child. Try to find that connection, pressing all the way down and back. And then also find that length and that lift and that reach, and feel how it's all coming from within, the support and the reach. And here's a great place to add that shoulder activation, that shoulder girdle. So you're pulling those shoulders out of your ears. You're trying to smooth your back out. You're not pulling your blades together, but they are active, so they're gently tucking down and together. Inhaling and exhaling, breathing full and deep. And then lift yourself up a little bit, and if you don't have your arms forward, bring them forward. Stay back in your child. Let that right arm sneak underneath that left arm, and let yourself, you don't even have to come all the way down to your head. Turn, though, you got that right arm on the ground, that shoulder's getting that stretch. Maybe your right ear comes, maybe your right cheek comes to the floor. It doesn't have to. As long as your neck is not in any pain, and then that left arm can reach forward. Inhale and exhale. Make sure you've got room to lift and bring that arm back out to that neutral child position. And then you are threading that left arm. Remember, you don't have to come all the way down to the head. You can just breathe full and deep. And the closer you got that arm to your knees, to your legs, the more, the stretch is just going to change. And you're going to hold yourself differently. So make sure you are supported. And I find if you're way back in this child position, you're really supported. All right, we're going to release, letting ourselves come up into our table now. Our hands come underneath those shoulders. Our knees come so they're right underneath those hips. And we are holding ourselves right behind the navel, right in front of the tail. You've done that little pelvic tilt, or do that little pelvic tilt back and forth. This is the hip flexors coming up and the tail going down. Find that place of support. Also, move your shoulder blades, the top of your shoulders. Now my elbows are kind of bending here a lot as I do this. You're going to come to a place where you support yourself. The shoulder blades are not squeezing together, but they're definitely active, and they're gently pulling down out of your ears. So your low back is engaged, your upper back is engaged, and you can feel yourself right here holding yourself in your trunk. And this is stable table, not hyperextending the elbows, not putting all the weight on your limbs, feeling how you hold yourself in your trunk. Start to sway that middle back, and then exhale, round through that middle back. So try to get the movement, the epicenter of the movement in the middle back. So your low back and your upper back are always in a supported place. Your girdle's engaged in order to have your body and your head in the right place. Breathing full and deep. Keep trying to bring your weight to the top part of your hands, not to the wrists, so you're really pressing through the balls of your hands. Pause in your neutral position. Rest back in a child for just a breath or two. Take the weight off your limbs, and especially if you are holding yourself in your trunk, you might still feel it in your limbs, so just take a moment. If you do feel a lot of sensation, wind those wrists. Gently breathing full and deep belly, ribs, chest. Exhaling fully, chest, ribs, belly. Back up to that table. These are some of my favorite. You're in stable table, so get that low back in a place of support. Make sure that your shoulder girdle is engaged. Keep pressing into both hands, and you are lifting that right leg up into that fire hydrant pose. Keep pressing into both arms. Keep lifting up. If you want to make some circles, and see how I don't have the foot higher or lower, it's in that same plane, and I'm not dipping down on that opposite limb. Inhaling and exhaling, breathing full and deep. Belly, ribs, chest. Exhaling fully, chest, ribs, belly. Make those circles big. Keep pressing through that heel. These are called fire hydrants. I love these. And I should have said, oh, make sure you've got something behind. You don't have something behind you, because you're going to stop with the fire hydrant and you're going to press back with that right heel, finding that length down that whole right leg. Try to keep pressing the toes down. Try to keep the leg pulling into the midline of your body so it's not flying out to the right. And then only if it feels all right in your body are you lifting that opposite limb. Don't let your shoulders come out of their sockets. Don't let your hips come out of their sockets. Keep the girdles engaged. We're going to come down. We're going to rest completely. Right leg back, arms wherever. Now, even if you're holding yourself in your trunk, you still might feel it. You're being gentle with your joints. Always, always gentle. Never sacrificing a joint for a muscle stretch. The joint is delicate, and they are progressively, right? They are progressively delicate to not so delicate, like your fingers and your toes, very delicate. Wrists, ankles, not so much delicate. Knees, not so much, and elbows, not so much, but still delicate. And then the same with the shoulder. It's stronger and the hip, right where the socket is, that's where you're looking to put a lot of your weight and hold yourself there. Stable table, stay in that place, lift into that fire hydrant, keep that knee bent, let those circles happen, breathing full and deep. I did not like these for a long time. I couldn't get my leg up very high, but the more I did them, the more I was able to open up my hips and really unlock a lot of stuff and really find some power. I am, just like everybody, I'm not typically flexible. I have tight everything. But the more yoga I do means the more I get to stretch it, and I do feel longer, leaner, taller. All right, lift that left leg up as high as feels good. And then press it back. Find that length. Try to keep that left hip flexor coming down to the floor. Don't let that left leg, or that left leg fly to the left. Keep pulling it more towards the midline. And then stay with that lift in your center as you bring that opposite right arm forward. And then you're going to come back into your child, resting back completely, taking that total break off of your limbs, making sure that you're taking care of yourself. Taking breaks as you need them. Remember, child is always available. Even if I am not saying the words, come into child. But if you need to rest, please rest. All right, the next pose is going to be downward dog. It's a great place to keep your girdles engaged, that lower girdle, that upper girdle. Lifting yourself into your downward dog. Keep your knees bent. This is a hinge. The weight is still in your trunk. Your limbs are just propping you up. Your limbs don't move you around, but that is typically how we operate, is that
that the limb is what moves us around, but really it's the trunk. And yoga helps you find, right, how you actually control the limbs. Play around with coming up on the toes, but then settle back onto the balls. Your heels may or may not touch. Do not hyperextend the elbows. Keep the kneecaps pulled up into the thighs, and we're going to protect the knees. And the shoulders are pulled out of the ears, and we're going to hang here in this downward dog for 2 more big, full, deep breaths. And if you want to come down to table or child, do so at any time. But if you can keep hanging here, let yourself hang. And then we're either going to walk to the front of our space, or you're going to drop to hands and knees and step up. You're in that forward fold. This is where I love to have blocks or a chair or something sturdy, but you're not putting all your weight on that. It's just there to help keep you steady. Move back and forth on those balls and heels. Find that place of support between both of those, where your balls and your heels evenly press down into the floor. Your feet only hip distance apart. Lift yourself up out of your lower body. Feel that tail come up to the sky. Keep those knees bent. And you're going to move as much or as little as feels good. So maybe swaying back and forth feels good to you. Maybe just hanging in stillness. But this is a forward fold. Keep those knees bent. Really, really, really bent in order to help with a lot of sensation and tightness in those hamstrings. All right, we're going to lift up halfway into our flat back. And the more you keep that nice long back, find that we're going to pause here, keep those knees bent, inhaling and exhaling. The weight's going into your back pockets. Take an exhale. We're coming forward. You're hinging. Reach for the floor or the blocks into that forward fold, and then lift up halfway, flat back. And then reach back down for the floor. The next time we come up, we're going to come all the way up. Unless you feel dizzy, then just come up halfway. Press yourself up, still with bent knees. Bring yourself all the way up, and then bring yourself up by lengthening those knees, never hyperextending, no matter how you come up, whether it's that reverse swan dive, or you just press up. Your hands come up above your head, and you pause in your mountain. You are breathing full and deep, navel, ribs, chest. Exhaling fully, chest, ribs, navel. You are coming into mountain, pressing through both the heels and the balls, lifting all 10 toes, spreading them wide, and then bringing them forward for just a gentle grip on the mat. You do not do hardly anything with your toes. They are really just there to look pretty. Kneecaps right up into your thighs, and then you're doing some sort of pelvic adjustment. This is your girdle adjustment. It is framework and muscle together. You drop the glutes and the tail, and then you pull the hip flexors up, and then that brings your pelvis into a place of support. You feel yourself solid base, dimples, navel down. Keep pulling those kneecaps up into your thighs. Don't lose that sensation, and keep those knees not hyperextended. And then from that solid base, your rib cage floats right over your hips. Your chest rises into the place in front of you. You feel that gentle pressure on the back of your shoulders in order to keep you in that lifted and supported position. You feel how the back body supports the front body, and then the crown of your head reaches to the sky, as you have a gentle tuck of your chin, inhaling and exhaling. It takes a lot of strength and awareness to bring your body into that place of where you are fully supported and into exactly your power. And I say the more you play around with that and the more you tap into that, the better it is and the easier it is. All right, come to, if you moved away from the top of your space, hopefully my head's not going to be cut off. I don't think it is. All right, we're going to reach into that. So you're in that mountain. We're going to reach into as much of a back bend as feels good. Doesn't have to be a lot. but stay engaged in your girdles, and then let yourself swan dive or hands through the heart into that forward fold, lift up, halfway, flat back, come back down, and we're gonna step back. So we're gonna get a little bit warm here, come into that table, or that knee down plank, or that plank. Keep those shoulders out of your ears, release down to the floor. Lift up, baby cobra to begin with. Let yourself lengthen back down. Baby cobra, lengthen back down. The next time, if you want to come up higher, if you want to come into an up dog where you lift, as long as you're not hurting your low back, keep breathing full and deep, and then either release down or pull right into your downward dog. So if you release down, you come to the belly, and then you pull into the table or into a child, and then go into downward dog. Take your time. Make your way to the front of your space, coming into that forward fold, halfway up, flat back, back for the floor, and then back up above your head. We are practicing moving in all of these different directions. Go as fast or as slow as feels good. Come through that forward fold, lift up, halfway, flat back, and then stepping back, bear your weight. Have your girdles engaged so you're supported. Lifting to your cobra up dog, and then back into that downward dog. Inhale and exhale, breathing full and deep. And then once again, making your way to the front of your space. It doesn't even have to look like what you've already done. If you're like, oh, let me just step up from the knees now, right? You totally can, because it's your practice. But make sure you're finding solid base, halfway up, flat back, back for the toes, back up above the head. We're going to go through that one more time. Coming through your forward fold, doesn't matter how it happens. Lift up halfway into that flat back, excuse me, and then press back into your plank, knee down plank or table. Release to the floor, lift to your cobra or up dog, and then go into your downward dog. And here's where you're going to pause for a couple breaths. And then once again, make your way to your child. Make sure you're taking care of yourself. Breathing full and deep. Belly, ribs, chest. Exhaling fully, chest, ribs, belly. So hopefully you feel a little bit warmer. You feel that blood flowing through you. Remember, you never have to go any faster than you want to go. And then when you're ready, we're going to come to that downward dog or that table, because you can do this in table, three-legged dog. Opening up that hip. Lift that right leg. Try to bring that right knee to the sky. Maybe that right heel comes towards your left glute. And then we're going to bring that right foot up between our hands. Now, if you know that doesn't work for you, come to table. Remember, you can use blocks and swing your right foot up between your hands, no matter how many steps it takes. If you did swing it from downward dog, you're coming into that runner's lunge. We're going to smear down that back foot, keep that right knee bent, and we're going to lift into Warrior One. So your feet are on railroad tracks, but that back foot, if it's okay, because if you don't like this stance, right, you really need to protect your knee. You can always have that heel lifted, but it's all about trying to find that squaring of your hips in this position. And your arms can reach above your head, or they can come right to your heart. Use the ball of that right foot. Use the ball of that left foot. Find your trunk and torso in the middle of that space. It's like a trifecta. And then you are settling into the stretch, and then also gaining strength. Inhale and exhale. Now, if you do have your arms up, bring them to your heart. You've got that back heel down. You're just going to open to Warrior Two. If you still got that back heel up, you got to bring that heel down.
Now to open to warrior two, my stance, sometimes the stance comes a little bit wider. Mine does. Still engaging all of the trunk, still trying to find the trifecta of pressing down with the feet, finding myself in the center, and then lifting from that place. Inhale and exhale. We're going to come into that side angle. That right arm is coming to the floor or a block, or you're just resting the elbow on the thigh. Try not to put all your weight. That left arm reaches up. Try to keep the socket engaged. If you want to make some big circles, that socket is still engaged. Let the circles happen. Right at the shoulder socket, let yourself go in the opposite direction. Try to keep your torso, your trunk engaged so you don't stretch with the stretch, you know what I mean? All right, pause. Let that arm just gently reach behind you. Where your wristwatch would be is right. Maybe you have a wristwatch on. If you do, on your left hand, bring it right to between your dimples, right where your tail would be. Inhaling and exhaling. Keep pulling that right thigh down. Lift yourself up. Keep that left arm behind you. You don't have to reach for that right leg. It's just gently behind you, right towards your middle. Stay in that lunge. Flip that right palm and now come into that reverse warrior. Here's where, if you want to bring that hand behind you and then bring that arm, like if you can reach your hands, great. If not, you're just coming into this stretch. Don't let it hurt your head. Keep your neck nice and long, and then you're going to release back into that warrior two. You're going to lift yourself up now, straighten that leg, lengthen that leg. Do not lock out that kneecap. And then let yourself move into a triangle so that right hand comes down, that left arm comes up. Same thing though, trifecta. Right foot, and you right in the middle. Breathing full and deep. And then take your time. This is where you definitely see how you are moving your legs. Your legs are not moving you. You're going to bring that left arm down. I think it helps to bring it to the floor or the block. And then lift yourself up and bring that back left foot up. Now, so all 10 toes face the short edge of your space. You might have to bring your stance shorter than me, depending on how open you are. And my feet are on railroad tracks again, not a balance beam. Bring that left arm down. Try to find that nice length, and then reach that right side up. Try to keep that low back square as you reach in that middle back. And then hands down on either side of that right foot. You bring that left leg back, and you're back in that runner's lunge. And you're going to step back into that three-legged dog or just into regular dog. You can then bring your foot down to meet the other. And then if you want to pull yourself, either stay in that downward dog or pull yourself forward. Move through a flow. And then rest in that downward dog, breathing full and deep. And now I'm just turning around so I stay facing you. Make sure you rest down completely. You're always taking time to find your breath and not push yourself to your very edge. I want you to challenge yourself, but you don't have to push yourself to the edge. All right, same thing, other side. Remember, this three-legged dog can be happening in table. It can be a three-legged table. I actually step my right foot up a little bit, so I've even got more of a base. Bend that left knee. Try to bring that left knee up to the sky. Take your time. Swing that left foot forward into that runner's lunge. And remember, it doesn't have to be one fell swoop. It can be a couple steps. It can be from your knees. So we start in runner's lunge, and then we smear down. If that feels comfortable to you,
Trying to find that trifecta right here. This feels a little weird sometimes. That right hip coming forward, that left hip coming back, and then you reaching from that place of your center. You're always trying to move from, so the trifecta of feet to navel, and then the trifecta of navel to shoulder, and then you have the extension of your arm and also, of course, your head. All right, you bring your hands to your heart. Take another inhale. We didn't do anything fancy here. We just held in this warrior one, and then we opened into that warrior two. Take your time, breathing full and deep. Your stance is as wide as feels good to you. We came into that side angle. So bring that left arm to wherever feels good. That right arm comes up, and we made a few great big circles right at the shoulder joint. Try not to pull that shoulder out of its socket. Really feel that rotation at the shoulder, and you're not pulling your trunk with the stretch. The trunk is staying solid. Let that right wrist come to right between your dimples, right about where your tail would be. Inhale and exhale. Lift yourself into that warrior two. Flip into that reverse warrior. If you want to pat yourself on the back, don't overextend any elbows. And then back into the warrior two. Lengthen, lengthen, lengthen. And then pull yourself into the triangle. The left arm comes down. The right side comes up. Now you're going to play around with your center of gravity. This is what this training is. This is your moving from your center. Bring that back right leg up and forward a little bit. And then you're back on railroad tracks. Try to find that solidness of your lower body, that right arm right underneath that shoulder, and then you lift that left side into that revolved triangle. That's what that is. And then take your time back into a runner's lunge to come back into the three-legged dog. I'm going to move myself away from the wall. And then if you want to move through the flow, no matter what it looks like, whether you come through knee down plank or regular plank, take that breath and that flow if that's what feels good to you. Here's where we're going to do 2 to 3 breaths in that downward dog. And then once again, make our way into the child. Breathing full and deep. Navel, ribs, chest. Exhaling fully, chest, ribs, navel. Make sure you're always taking care of yourself. Taking drinks as you need them. And I'm just checking the time. And yes, I don't know if I mentioned at the beginning of this, there'll be Shavasana. So there'll be about a 5-minute rest. I'll meditate while you lay in Shavasana and totally take all of the wonderful goodness into your body. All right, we're going to come into pigeon. This is the ultimate stretch for the hips. We're pretty warmed up. We're going to, before we go into pigeon though, we actually are going to come into either through downward dog or table. Bring that right foot forward and then bring that right arm into the inside. So it's like you bring that right foot forward and then walk that right foot over. And then I'm curling that back left toe and I'm settling into crocodile or alligator, I think this is sometimes called. I've got my hands on blocks in order to help bring the floor up. Try to keep that right knee pretty close to your right arm. Inhaling and exhaling, that back left knee is back on the floor, and you're always trying to find that place of you. The trifecta here is actually left knee, right foot, and your pelvis. And it's closer, so hopefully you can feel that. All right, take your time. You might want to bring that left knee back in a little bit so you are nice and supported. And then, I love being on blocks because it brings everything up. I'm walking over. I want you to be able to see. I'm walking over to bring that right knee down to the right side. Now I'm curling that back left toe, and once again, pulling that knee back. Now the trifecta is right knee, left knee, hips. Keep flexing that foot. Let the top of that back foot come down, and then letting yourself come into the reclining pigeon. And we'll be here for a few breaths. And here's where there's a few variations of pigeon. And if you do not like this variation, if it just doesn't work for you, of course you can do another one. But if you can be here, try not to dump down. Typically people like to dump down. That doesn't keep your hips square. You always want to keep your tail pointing to the sky. Your inner thighs are pulling together. You really want to activate there right below right below your pelvis, right where the socket of your leg, of your hip, of your trunk, where your legs stick into your trunk is where you want to activate. And then take your time, lift. If you want to lift that, this does not hurt you, and you want to reach back, don't strain anything, breathing full and deep. And then we're going to come out, whether you pull up to a downward dog or a table. It does not matter. Try to rest in some sort of pose. It doesn't matter what it looks like or how long you do in either. You never have to pull in a downward dog ever again if you don't want to, or maybe you haven't at all. We're going to come into that left foot forward. Take your time. Bring that left foot over a little bit to the left. Here's where I'm going to scoot that right knee back a little bit. And then I'm going to come down onto the elbows, which are actually on the blocks. On the elbows, I've got that left foot. I keep pulling it closer to me. Let that right leg extend, really engage. This really helps to engage at that pelvis. Pull that tail down. Pull those hip flexors forward. Feel right where those sockets are. And then get that stretch. The trifecta, the left foot, right knee, and your trunk. Inhaling and exhaling. It's going to feel different on each side. Right, your dominant side over your non-dominant side. Lift yourself. Maybe bring that back knee in. It doesn't matter what you do. Just make sure you're supported. And then I'm going to walk that left foot over to the right side. Pull that left knee down on the left side. Scoot that right leg back. Keep those hips nice and square so I'm not dumping down. I'm staying lifted. And we're going to breathe here for a few deep breaths. I did not bring your awareness to it earlier, but there is another breath that you can do to help you in moments, especially when you just want, if you got like your thoughts going or it's just so intense. It's that ocean sounding breath, and that is where you constrict the back of your throat as you inhale and exhale through your nose. It's just like how you fog a mirror or a window up with your mouth open and the breath out. You do that same constriction while you're inhaling and exhaling through your nose. And it's going to be louder on one part than the other, and it is just about, it's like try not to judge, just be. And take your time, lift yourself into an upright position. And if you want to bend that back knee, and then I was reaching back with that same side, which you can do whatever, it would be a bigger stretch. Remember, don't hurt those elbows, never straining the elbows. All right, it's all about coming back to rest. You want to go into a downward dog. If you want to do another flow, it does not matter what you choose. We're going to press back into that child and rest there completely. Breathing full and deep, navel, ribs, chest. Exhaling fully, chest, ribs, navel. And then lift yourself, coming to a comfortable position, seated. Doesn't matter what your legs are doing, just make sure you've got a nice, wide base. You've got a base so you feel nice and comfortable. And we are going to come forward, but we're first going to reach those arms wide and then keep your shoulder girdle engaged, so shoulders pulled out of your ears. Bringing those arms wide, still keep those shoulders pulled out of the ears. This is my right hand I'm bringing up. My left hand is coming down. I'm going to bend my elbows. Right elbow tucks inside that left elbow. And I can bring my palms together, but you don't have to. It can be the back of your hands, or it can be your hands up on your shoulders, and you are just keeping your elbows raised that way. And feel that stretch no matter what your arms are doing by keeping that shoulder girdle engaged. So that right shoulder, you probably feel it a little bit more than the left. And that, if you've got that right arm on top, that is what's going to happen. Make sure that it's just intense sensation. It's not pain. Stay with your breath. Only do this if it serves you. So you keep lifting the elbows, but let yourself come forward over those legs. Really try to press those glutes, this down to the floor. This adds an extra stretch there on that low back, which you may or may not like. It might be too much, especially if you don't really know how to hold your pelvis in that place of support and you feel a lot of stuff going on in your low back, which we're not taught that ever, so it's one of those things, nobody knows what to do with it. Keep following me. I will show you what to do with it. All right, lift yourself up. That right shoulder still engaged. That was a hanging knot. You're going to let those arms come out. Now you let that total relaxation come over your side as you let that stretch just go. And then arms out to shoulder height. Keep those girdles engaged. Left arm up, right arm down. Come into that same thing. So now it's the left shoulder. Stay with those elbows lifted. And remember, it doesn't really matter what your arms are doing as long as you are taking care of your joints. Let yourself come forward. Do that hanging knot there for a breath or two. Inhaling and exhaling. And then you're going to lift yourself up into that upright position and let those arms go. And then here's where, if you've got a block, I'm going to do a bridge with a block. And if you don't have a block, you can always use a bolster. We're going to come onto our back to begin with. Take your time. Keep those knees bent. Windshield wiper back and forth. Really feel heavy in that whole trunk. So it's like you've got that weighted blanket and your sockets are weighted down. That's your hip and your shoulder socket. So that keeps your butt down, because if you lift your butt up when you bring those feet up, it can really hurt your low back. And I want you to not hurt your low back. So you are always in charge of the sensation and what's going on in your body. But the heavier it feels in your whole trunk, it's like you've got a weighted blanket. It's got 5 holes, 2 for your legs, 2 for your arms, but your sockets are still weighted. And then there's just a little hole for your face. Your forehead's still weighted, your chin's still weighted, your cheeks are still weighted, but you can breathe and look if you need to. So rock and circle, doing whatever feels good, or you're just staying in the windshield wiper, letting yourself reset. Eventually you're going to be done into that beginning bridge position. This is where You find that clock on your lower pelvis, 12 and 6. 12 is your navel, 6 is your pubic bone, and then of course 9 and 3 are right where your hip flexors are. And you want all that clock face to be even. So you have to sometimes do some pretty aggressive or not very subtle realigning, and you're always realigning to find that place of support so your low back is completely supported. And stay with that sensation of support and engagement of support as you lift, and then slide that block to right at the top of your glutes, breathing full and deep. Keep pulling those glutes down, keep engaging those hip flexors. Even though this is supported, you are still lifting yourself up in order to get the maximum in this stretch. Inhaling and exhaling. All right, keep tucking that tail, lift down one vertebrae at a time. Let yourself release to windshield wiper, rock, or circle, or some combination. And then feet on the floor or on the ground, doesn't matter. Arms out shoulder height. Let your knees fall to the left. Try to keep your right arm from your right fingers to your right, to the middle of your chest. So your right shoulder blade, all that stays on the ground, and you are anchored with that right arm, and you are twisting away to the left, and then come through center. Same thing, you're anchored left side, and you are twisting away to the right. Come back through center, hug yourself into a little ball, take a big inhale, and then exhale. Let yourself just explode out, landing on your mat in your Shavasana. Of course, taking a moment if you want to put on socks or a sweatshirt or sleeves, and I am going to have you be here in this relaxation for a few moments. You need to not worry. I will not let you fall asleep and miss whatever's next in your life. If you want to just close your eyes, cover up, I got you for the next few moments as you lay in relaxation, getting all of the yummy, yummy benefits of this yoga class. So I'll be sitting here and we'll let you know when time is up.
start to become aware of your breath, taking your time to wake up from your relaxation. Let small movements happen when you're ready. The chest rising and falling, the navel rising and falling, a little twitch into your fingers and your toes, that gentle circling in your wrists and ankles, and the bend of your knees and elbows. Take a moment there on your back, either doing that windshield wiper or pulling in and rocking and circling. So you get that massage on your back and then roll to one side. Rest in that feel-like position, that very first position you were ever in. And here you are grateful to yourself for being born, grateful to yourself for treating yourself to yoga. Remember what the intention was at the beginning of practice. Notice if it's something you can take with you off the mat, and definitely this idea of connecting to your breath and seeing how you are the support and the lift from within for yourself all the time is something you can strive for, and I encourage you to do that. Pressing yourself up into an upright seated position, take your time. Finding that comfortable seat, your hands can make their way to your heart. And here I say, namaste. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a good one.